I am so excited, and like I'm not lying. I'm so excited. This is my favorite subject matter, things to talk about, and it's what I've been learning difficultly for the past decades. I hope you guys had a great time, and if you have any questions or anything, let me know, and I hope everybody at home had a great time. Thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, Michael Zinn, for filming for us. Thank you, Tranquility Within.
So we'll be wrapping this up in a second. First, I should say, I really enjoyed doing this. So I am thinking about continuing to do this every Monday through another avenue. But hit me. More interactive. Yeah, and yeah, a bit more interactive. But if you're interested in continuing this journey, hit me at jessieblazesnyder@gmail.com, and I'll give you the information for where I will be continuing to do this.
And we are live. Yeah.
Beautiful, Michael. Oh, it's so gorgeous.
Rocking.
So I'm hitting the bong right now.
Oh,
4 weeks.
I call you too early.
It's okay. But you know, people shouldn't have any guilt about this. There's a lot of states now where it's legal, like California, where I am. And it's really good anxiety medicine. My back went out this morning. And actually, it was the first time, Michael, I ever did this. I fixed my own back. I went on YouTube and I typed in, like, get your back right. And I managed to mostly fix it. And I finished what I was doing.
What'd you type in? Get your back right?
Yeah.
Hey, what's happening, people? Michael Zinn here, and this is Love as Law with Michael Zinn and Jesse Blaze. Just waiting for Jesse. He was having some computer issues at his place, and he's here now, but I'm going to bring him in just a second when he's sitting at his computer. And just he's an all-around loving guy, cool and talented guy, very much, you know, like you and I, always kind of
Hello, and welcome to the live stream of consciousness. Yes. I'm here with Michael Zinn, as opposed to across the country from him, and we're so excited. We got a great show for you today. We got our friend Cassandra Vitale coming on the show. She's a relationship and personal empowerment coach, by way of spiritual thought, and she's really excited to share her personal road to consciousness. with you guys like we always have. And I'm so excited. I'm here beside my friend. Although it's weird to be here, like, because I'm used to looking at the picture
Right.
and talking to you. Like, and now, like, when I'm here next to you, I'm like, I feel like
Hey,
I gotta,
what's up, buddy?
Hello. I talk to you. Is
So
it okay if I look at your eyes through
yeah.
there? We talk to each other like we're
don't
not
know.
next to each other?
This is totally fine. Let's look at the camera. How's everybody doing? How is the sound? I was having some issues earlier. Taylor loves your shirt. What's up, Taylor? What's up, Ninja?
I've
What's
got
up,
a Triforce
Angela?
on my shin, too.
Oh,
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you for all being here and coming to the live stream of consciousness like
Yes.
you tend to every week. We have such a lovely, dedicated audience that comes to hang out with us. I really appreciate it. You know, I took myself off social media a few months ago, and I thought, like, oh, well, if I can't tell people about the show, then our audience is going to dissipate. But that has not been the case.
no.
So lovely to see
We'd
you
love
guys
to see you. Yes.
back and
Totally.
and always here getting our back. But I guess we'll just get things going with our typical. How's it going, Michael Zinn? What is your life?
It's going
going?
amazing. I got these new glasses and I can see so much clearer now.
Oh, I was going to ask you about the glasses. Are
Yeah.
the new frame, they're like circles.
New frames, yeah, they're kind of like Harry Potterish, a little bit bigger, but
I don't mean to like make it like an insult, but like they're
No,
like
no.
they got the bottom of the bottle thing
Oh,
going
yeah,
because
yeah,
they're
yeah.
circles, like you know.
Totally, but
they're cool. They look
my
nice.
prescription was wrong, and I had seen an ophthalmologist. I think I mentioned it on the show. I may have not, but yeah, it was like whoosh, cleaning your windshields. You know, it was like everything was clear. So that's going great.
Nice.
Halloween was amazing, and I started to design some projected spaces upstairs for the parties. I had been talking about that a few weeks back.
Oh, cool.
They did a dinosaur party. So
For those of you who don't know, like there's these projectors that you can project all sorts of stuff. Like when you see the outside of the buildings, and they've like animated things, and the windows turn into eyes, and everything moves like that. That's all done with projectors, and you program the stuff beforehand. And there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do.
Right. So yeah, so I found this cool like waterfall in the distance, and then I found a cool bunch of foliage in the foreground that was like you're in the jungle, and then I had a bunch of different dinosaurs walking by, a T-Rex and a Stegosaurus, and then the T-Rex comes out. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was I'm finally doing what I was supposed to be doing over there, besides all the graphic design and web work I've been doing, and I'm excited. The projectors are in, and you know what it is? It's like I'm finally painting with that canvas that I was talking about, having these projectors and having these surfaces to work with. Now I can actually like build stuff, throw it at the wall, and see what it looks like.
Did you have a Halloween costume?
I had a couple.
I
had this little. Well, I just grabbed some stuff that the bosses had laying around. One was like a Reaper thing, but it was like you put it over your head, and the head is up here, so it makes you taller, you know. And
cool.
And then I had one that looked like it looked like an Oompa Loompa was carrying me around on its shoulders.
I feel a little bit like I'm on SNL. Oh, cool. Yes, like I'm like we're the two in the jacuzzi, or no, the two cheerleaders when Will Ferrell and Sherry O'Terry are like, oh, cool. Yes. What do you think? Mm-hmm. But largely you're looking out at the audience. All right. That's
hysterical.
All right, let's do our cheer. And so you're an Oompa Loompa?
I had an Oompa. It look like, you know, those. They look like you've been abducted by an alien.
Oh yeah. My girlfriend's dad had the being carried off by the alien costume. Which
so
was
it was like that, but it was an Oompa Loompa. Like I was on the Oompa Loompa's shoulders, and the Oompa Loompa was carrying me around, so I could like stumble around, and it would be like, I'd be like, hey, you know.
That's
funny.
It
was kind of funny.
This is, I don't know if, let's see if we can see. Can we see that on the screen? I don't know if I can. Yeah, there we go. Carnage and Venom. That's nice. The little Venom is Grayson, and I'm Carnage.
Nice. Let's see. Probably even get it closer.
Yeah. That was my costume.
It should adjust.
This was chosen by my son, of course. I was originally supposed to be Venom, and he was going to be Carnage, because if you watch the movie, it sort of suggested that Carnage is the child of Venom. So he was like, you can be Venom and I'll be Carnage. But we had to switch costumes because he couldn't get a Carnage costume, apparently. But yeah, I am.
That's good.
You know, I've been having the shittiest 3 weeks. Taught me a lot of things. You know, realizing in conversation prior to coming on, what it was all meant to teach me. I mean, you know, for those of you who've been watching, you know, I got my wisdom teeth taken out a few weeks ago, and when I go to the doctor, I have a tendency to try to just like go with other people's flow. Like I feel like that's their position. It's their, you lead and I'll, once I've committed to the doctor, okay, that doctor's going to do the thing and I'll follow. And I've been having terrible side effects. And my doctor was not listening to what I was saying. I was telling him very clearly what I was dealing with. And I really like jumped out of my skin when this weekend, I had Halloween with my kids and me and my girlfriend Julie came down to New York to kind of just celebrate my son's birthday a little bit because he's turning 8 in November, at the end, towards the end of November, I should say. But I came early so I could do Halloween with them and then we could celebrate. And I'm driving back from Coney Island after having a great time, but dealing with a lot of like this terrible smelling and tasting mucus. And I thought it was in relation to my wisdom teeth, and it was lasting like two and a half weeks or something. And my girl Julie, she starts Googling and she's like, Jesse, you have all of the symptoms of a sinus infection. And I've had these symptoms since a few days after my surgery. And I came in and I told the doctor all the things I was experiencing. And he just kept, like, literally the last time I saw the doctor, he went, well, I don't want to have to see you again, even though I was still having these symptoms. And so like,
is this like a shout out or the opposite?
This is the opposite of a shout out. No, this is a trust your gut. And, and that's the lesson, for me, like, I'm working on some music stuff right now. And I have a tendency to sort of just not want to beat my chest or make it like I'm the person who knows, but I am the person who knows. I'm the person who knows my body. I'm the person who knows the direction that I would like to go musically, and I make confident choices, and I know where I would like to go, and I sort of give everybody enough rope to hang themselves with, and then I get frustrated that I didn't take the lead and and direct the conversation or direct the flow of the energy where it should have gone in the first place. And then I'm frustrated. I get screwed, and I'm really mad. Right. And what a terrible way to learn this lesson, though. Yeah. It was like
I feel
torturous.
Like sometimes in the medical profession, not to offend anybody who out there might be a doctor, but sometimes I feel like it feels like a business. You're going in there, and you go in the office, and they're just like, they touch you. They're like, yeah, you feel okay, how you doing? And then you're off. And
well, there's this illusory idea as well that the doctor knows best, and that you're not capable of understanding basic mechanisms of your mind or body. And that's not true. Right. Everybody is capable of doing their own research and coming away with a certain thing. Can people get things wrong? Sure. Right. But that doesn't mean that you should not go research and you should listen to everybody point blank. You don't know. Has this doctor decided to do any further research outside of medical school? A lot don't.
Medicine.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people don't. And, and sometimes it does just take a Google search to have a good idea about what is going on with you and what the answers might be. Right. And, to be able to direct your doctor, so many doctors, my mom has been dealing with her father in the hospitals, and there's a lot of dispassion. Mm-hmm. And that was like the big thing, and I should have saw it with my doctor immediately. I was having a lot of pain. He came in, his assistant had really gently put some gauze in my mouth because I was dealing with, a lot of pain. And then he came in and he just violently like shoved his hand in my mouth, and I like reacted like, and then he did it again. Like 2 seconds later, he went one, and I reacted like, and then he did it right. I wanted to kick his ass. I couldn't believe that he didn't empathetically feel my energy and feel that he was hurting me and try to make an adjustment. Advocacy is so important. It is always important that you're heard because you're part of the team and should be treated as such. It's true. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, no. And totally. When you don't let yourself get steamrolled. And I think that's the thing that I do, a lot. My girlfriend, Julie, is really wonderful because she sees me so much better than I see myself. And she gets me and gets that like I'm kind of giving away the farm a lot of times in these small ways of being humble. I think most people see me and they're like, well, Jesse's loud and he speaks his mind. And sure, but I'm also very like, okay, you know, whatever you want, and I'd like everybody to
You
be
have a good
happy and
soul.
like,
You're-
you know,
you're
so when you're
soulful.
that kind of person who wants to make everybody happy and like, you know, you don't necessarily want to rock the boat unless you feel there's a need to defend yourself. And I'm way less quick to defend myself than I am to defend other people.
Right.
Like if somebody else is being, you know, persecuted, then I'm like, what are you doing? Don't you hurt that person.
So
like
you feel all right? I heard the story 3 times now.
You've heard it, but it's for them.
No,
See,
no,
this
I know.
is the problem.
I know. Did you get it out, though?
No, it's not me getting it. See, you son of a bitch. You're doing the thing again where you're making it like this is Jesse's therapy.
No,
Smack in the face.
I'm
This
sorry.
is me utilizing the actual experience that is happening
all right.
so
the
that
reason
I can tell people to not do what I have done,
Okay,
to
you're right,
learn from
I
my
apologize
experience
again.
and stick up for yourself. And if you know that, no, this isn't my wisdom teeth, this isn't the
Right.
typical experience. I'm covered in tattoos, sir. I'm not somebody who's having a lot of trouble with pain management. You know, like if you know something's wrong, and I didn't stick to my guns.
Right.
You know, I needed to stick to my guns. And also, and in so many different ways, I'm seeing that. And I feel like when I come out of this, because it's been 3 weeks of like feeling like such shit after I was feeling so good. I was going to the gym and I was doing really, really awesome. And then I got the wind taken out of my sails. I feel like I'm hungry now and I'm like going to bite somebody's head off because I know the way and I know what to do. It's okay. And I shouldn't doubt myself so much. And I really, you know, it's a message to all you guys. Don't doubt yourself so much.
Yeah, no,
and,
Kenzie said it, advocacy.
I just, you know, really at the end of the day, I know that people see me as somebody who does put a lot of energy out there and has a lot of confidence on a lot of levels. But even I can very easily let somebody else steer the ship.
Yeah,
because
the doctor's office,
all right,
you feel
you
like,
know,
oh, it's your office, you know what you're doing.
Yeah, and you become a timid lamb, and you let
Yeah.
people lead you to slaughter, unfortunately. So it's really, it's unfortunate, and I just everybody needs to be their own advocate and not allow themselves to just be, you know, swept under the rug or told what's what when you know that that's not right, that's not the right thing. So please take it from me, stick up for yourself. If you feel pain, if you know that something's wrong, make sure your doctor knows. Advocate for yourself. Be your own advocate. You know, don't wait for your girlfriend to tell you you're not wrong. Stand up for yourself, and you know, do it yourself, and know that you should. So you don't have to deal with nights of being on the wrong medicine and being in pain. And oh my goodness, what a torturous 3 weeks this has been.
All right.
But I'm excited.
You turned around.
I'm excited.
I'm
excited for this next week.
I see our guest in the green room. Hello,
yes,
hello.
I see Cassandra is back
waiting
there.
Pleasantly. I wanted to share something.
What do you got
to change the vibe? I don't know who follows me on social media or not, but I saw this thing. I don't know if you saw this thing. I posted it today. I saw this video and it blew my mind. And it has just such an amazing feeling. It's just 2 minutes long. So just 2 minutes of this video. I just want to share it with the world and share it with you.
Introduce Cassandra,
and then we'll bring Cassandra
to the world of the live stream of consciousness.
So let me remove us from the stream. I don't think it's a commercial for the clothes. I don't think it's a commercial.
What's
but
Burberry?
I think it's just, I don't know. Maybe it is a commercial for the clothes. It was done by a director that I had seen.
Well,
it was
funny.
presented in a film context.
I just did.
Amazing. How did that
It's
make
amazing.
you feel?
It made me feel amazing. It made me think of, I've been doing a lot of videos for Thinking Critical, which is a comic book YouTube channel. And, one of the people, after I was talking about lots of very high-minded, idealistic things on the channel, somebody basically said in the comments, they said, well, they said comic book superheroes don't make any sense because in the real world, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this would never happen. Nobody would ever do that with their power. And that broke my heart. And, and I really, I'm going to plan to go on there and do a whole video about, we have to think better. We have to, it takes somebody thinking that we could. What if a man could fly? What if that man decided to do the right thing every time?
Right.
And it's when they take Superman and they try to make him more like us and they've got him breaking somebody's neck that they miss the entire point. The point of Superman is, what if we could have better? What if we could do better? What if we held ourselves to that standard all the time? And I tell you what, I'm a very powerful person on many levels, and I do not press my advantage. I don't take advantage of people. I don't misuse my power. And I believe there are many people out there who don't misuse their power, wouldn't misuse their power, but it's a matter of who is interested in power. That's the problem. The problem is who is drawn to power. And a superhero comic book tells you, well, wow, wouldn't it be amazing if one of those people who isn't, ruined by power, if they had the power, what would they do? And that's a great thing. And we need to keep thinking of these things so that we can, that's right. That's why they call him Superman. And, and it's terrible because without people, an archetype like Superman or Jesus or whoever, we don't know that that stuff exists until we see it in our day-to-day lives, because it can be a thing where the power is corrupting those who are corruptible and those who are interested in it. Anyway, what a beautiful video. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Without further ado, can we bring on our guest?
Absolutely, I would love to. Do you want to do an intro?
So this is my girlfriend Julie turned me on to Cassandra Vitale. She's a personal relationship coach and a personal power coach, and she does this very spiritually minded, and she has a unique journey to consciousness, and I wanted to bring her on and give us a little bit of her story and hopefully connect her to all of you guys who are watching, for anybody who needs some of her magical help that she gives out on her Instagram all the time.
This show connects people, so
we connect a lot of people. We've got a lovely, loyal audience, so hopefully we can connect some people to Cassandra.
And here she is. Hello, Cassandra. Hold on, you're muted.
Oh, there you are.
Hello, there you are.
Hi there. How are you? Hi.
Great. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. The opening question that we always like to ask everybody here on the live stream of consciousness is, what does consciousness mean to you?
Consciousness to me means awareness. Just knowing things, being able to know things, being aware of what we know, and the process of discovery, whether it be of ourselves or the universe or anything else.
The process of discovery and awareness.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's at the end of the day, the show is about that. Everybody who crosses over to the next sort of realm of living has a moment where they go, oh, wow, I have been living very unconsciously. I've been wrapped up in so many things and I could not see the forest for the trees. And then you go, oh shit, there are the trees. There's the forest. What am I going to do about this? So, we always like to say, take your time. And can you tell us how you went from being, Cassandra, normal person living unconsciously, to Cassandra Vitale, coach and empowerment specialist, like trying to help people and trying to live a more conscious life?
Sure. Take my time. Okay, great. Start at the beginning.
Yeah, start at the beginning.
One of my favorite places to start is that I went to Catholic school.
Oh.
Yes, that's one of the places. And I've always been an inquisitive person. And even as a kid, I was inquisitive. And when things didn't really match up or make sense to me, I wanted to know more. And I remember sitting in church one day, and the priest was talking about how God is everywhere and is everything. And, that whole thing about always watching you. But I thought, well, if God is everywhere and everything, then aren't we God too? Right. And as a kid, I was kind of like, so why do I even have to go to church? Why do I have to follow these rules?
They don't want you to think like that because that's what you start to think.
God's with me all the time.
Yeah. And if I am God, then I could do what I want. So why do I have to follow these rules? And just throughout my life, I've sort of had this rebellious nature, and there's a part of me that's always wants to be good and do good and treat people well and make things fair. And then there's a part of me that has mischief and wants to be rebellious and cause a little bit of trouble. And so, those two things are both at odds, but also I think make me a fun person. And so I decided I didn't want to be Catholic anymore. I didn't get confirmed. For anybody who's Catholic, all the different sacraments that you go through. I didn't want to follow that process. And then I went to public school and sort of discovered things outside of the sheltered world of being a Catholic school person or a Catholic kid. And I was introduced to weed. That was probably one of the first things that woke me up and made me start thinking about the world in a different way. And
that was my entry as well. I didn't even know that I had anxiety. I didn't know that I had depression until I got sort of this separate. Well, there was because I was straight edge, so like my parents raised us all like it was like sort of a badge of honor to be very clean. They didn't drink, kind of clean and sober kind of thing. And so I always tried not to look down on it because I had a lot of friends who did, but it was at 28. And I remember my younger brother, who was 10 years younger than me, coming to me and going, I think this would really help you. And they saw how high strung I was, but I had no idea. I had no idea what they were saying. I had just reached sort of a point where I was ready for a change, and I was feeling kind of frustrated by some of the results I was getting. But very quickly I went, oh man, like I have been walking around feeling a way that has been stopping me from being conscious. It's been stopping me from being able to see myself for who I am and to be able to properly evaluate what's going on in my life. And then it wasn't long after that I realized that I had suffered from various bouts of depression that I couldn't even begin to admit to myself because I had learned like this positive mental attitude and this work ethic and all these things that are really good, but I was working myself into the ground, and I would go through these moments of real pain and suffering where I couldn't even admit it to myself because I didn't have any sort of conscious understanding of what was going on. So I feel you very much, in that journey that those things can really break the glass and help you wake up.
That moved me in the direction of counterculture in general and looking at the world through a lens of people who are rebelling against society and the things that aren't fair and that aren't good and that aren't just like what you were just talking about, people abusing power, and what can we do about it, and how can we change the world in a way that will make everyone's lives better, right? And like increase the quality of our lives and justice and whatever else. So that pushed me in that direction. I was really into reggae music and all that good stuff, right? The weed stuff. So
the weed stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
happy weed.
Yeah, I was in college and I was introduced to psychedelics. And that's for me more than the weed. I mean, the weed was definitely a mind expanding, of course. How can it not be? But mushrooms and LSD and those things, I had these deeply, deeply spiritual experiences when I was on. It wasn't like, haha, this is funny or anything. I like went into a deep spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Where I realized that I have this Mother Mary spirit within me. And I think some of the way I was translating it had to do with my upbringing and the mythology that I was given. And that was the way I was translating the information that I was receiving from being with the medicine, right?
It was still a connection to whatever that power was. We talk about that here all the time. Keep going.
I always think about Jesus when I take mushrooms. I always think about being the Mother Mary spirit. And so that was a realization for me of like, I'm here to embody that energy on Earth. And that's my purpose. And my purpose is to raise the vibration of the planet and to help people heal and facilitate healing and facilitate that increased consciousness and that awareness.
Yeah, I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people have false, thoughts about what these things represent. When I finally did mushrooms again shortly after marijuana, for me it was much later in my life. I did it because Steve Jobs had said it was the only reason why he created Apple computers. So I was on an intellectual journey. I wanted to see what it was that he learned from that. And when they kicked in, it filled me with gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized immediately how sort of positive it was and spiritual as I realized the oneness, sort of in an instance. And I sort of got really angry that these things had been taken, had been presented in the ways they've been presented, because it was such a spiritual thing for me. And when I take mushrooms, I literally will just lay in bed or, sit outside and meditate for the first like 3 hours. I will just sit there and meditate and write songs, or, things will just come out of me as I start to sit and pray and, connect to my spirits and open myself up. And it's a very, very spiritual experience for me. It's never like people are, oh, you're on mushrooms. No, It's not like that. It's like I was on mushrooms and I did a very serious thing, and I did a lot of soul work, and I realized a lot of things, and I opened myself up, and I let go of a lot of anxiety, and I changed my mind about a few good things. And then I came out of that and I walked around a little bit and I connected to nature, and I felt good and I felt empowered and in my body. And the next day I woke up a changed person who was going to do things differently from now on, and that's pretty much always my experience. And it's not the type of thing that, some people can manage to abuse these drugs, but it's really,
it's starting to get a better rep,
I think it is. Yeah.
It used to be, I can remember when I was younger, it was like, man, you got to trip, you got to check this out. I don't think I knew what was going on, when I was in college and I took psychedelics, at that point. And then I think for me, my spiritual revelation was like much later in life, and now I don't kind of use that to do that. And I'm intrigued as to how it would be now, with my perception now, like what would it be like on a mushroom trip or ayahuasca? We talk about this stuff here all the time. So yeah. So go.
Cool.
So continue. This is great.
So after having a few experiences like that, all that were similar, and pushed me forward into deciding that I wanted to do something that was more meaningful to me than what I had originally sought out to do when I was in college, which I originally was going to become an elementary school teacher. I decided to change over and become an anthropologist because I care a lot about humanity. And that was really fun for me, the subject of just studying humanity and culture. And it was through my anthropology studies that I found yoga and Buddhism and Hinduism and Eastern philosophy. And I realized when I was reading about all of these different religions that the things that I had discovered while high and the philosophies that resonated with me and that meant something to me were found in these texts and in these practices, right? So I started doing yoga, and I remember my very first yoga class. The teacher was talking about DNA spiraling, and I love Tool, so I'm really into the band Tool and all of their songs. They talk about spiraling, right? Sacred geometry,
Fractals,
yeah. And so I just got really into the trippy aspect, but then also yoga. I was a neurotic person, and I had a hard time relaxing as well. And someone said, you should try yoga. And then I realized that all of the things that I needed were converging together all in one place, which is, I had felt very, very much demoralized and alienated from the spirituality that I grew up in, Catholicism, because I didn't agree with so many things that the church had done. But I still wanted that ritual. I wanted that peace. I wanted that place to connect. So yoga sort of was like the amalgamation of everything. It had the psychedelic trippy aspects that I love. It had the peace and the spirituality and the ritual that I love.
Sure.
And then the philosophy. And I just became super obsessed with it. And that was.
So I guess, let me ask the question. When you were doing yoga, was meditation a part of that as well?
Yeah.
Were you introduced to meditation? I mean, because it's interesting. Meditation is definitely a part of those Eastern philosophies, and like how simple and basic it is. So let me get this right.
Breathing.
Yoga is actually a preparation for meditation, or is it the other way around? No, it's yoga is preparation for meditation.
Well, yoga just means union, and it's sort of a umbrella term for a lot of different types of practices, meditation being one of them. And then what most people think of when I say yoga probably is doing the poses, right? All the different things, and maybe some breathing and stretching. And yes, you would want to move your body around and sort of get all of the conversations out of your body before you want to sit quietly, so that your body becomes a distraction if you're trying to meditate and it's not stretched. Your knees start talking to you, your whatever part of you has something to say that
makes sense, right? That makes sense. That description.
Oh, it's always so much easier to meditate after you've done yoga. That's I've had great experiences where I realized, wow, it'd be great to meditate now. Like, and when you sit there at the end of class, sometimes if you have like a class where you don't have to immediately get up, and I've laid there for just a few minutes and have had a deeper meditation than I've had sitting for 30 minutes, and in silence or whatever else, because I was so stretched and worked out and my mind was exhausted. And like, that's also like the thing that I find, you do a bunch of things and you're having to work a little bit to understand what's going on, whatever it might be. And then you feel like, oh, I don't have the energy to think anymore. And then it's much easier to silence that part of your monkey mind, as they would say.
Yeah. So it was a combination of breathing, of moving meditation, philosophy, studying philosophy. And then also I got introduced to a lot of other healing modalities by being a part of this yoga studio and following the teachers. And I did Reiki, and I got trained in Reiki, which is a Japanese energy healing technique. I'm guessing you've probably talked about that before.
Oh yeah, my mom and my brother Cody are both Reiki masters.
There you go.
We're well aware of the practice.
Yeah. So I discovered Reiki and became a Reiki master too, and studied that and taught that for a while, and then eventually I got connected to a whole bunch of things. Astrology. I studied astrology, tarot cards. I love divination and magic.
All connected.
It is. I love chaos magic. I'm a really big chaos magic fan.
What is chaos magic exactly?
Chaos magic would be, the simplest way to describe it is turning what is chaos, which is reality, into whatever it is you want to create. So creating order in chaos, manifesting. There's lots of different practices. I don't know if you've ever heard of like the lesser banishing ritual. That's something from there are a lot of different rituals and practices that you can use in order to create like protection around you. So the lesser banishing ritual,
I think my siblings use that all the time. I feel like I know the I've heard
you call on archangels, you draw pentagrams, you center yourself, and the idea is that you're creating a protective circle around you, so that then whatever intentions you set or whatever other rituals you do within that circle, you're essentially banishing any energy that you don't want and then calling in the energy that you do.
I think we don't necessarily use that term, but we talk about a lot on
Your
the show.
Sister was talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that, but like I'd like to say when you're creating a shrine, what you're creating is just sort of a template for you and your space, and putting some intention and trying to take what is a mental, non-solid thing and give it some solidity in the real world to empower your consciousness, and to be an additional, sort of piece to help you maintain what you're trying to concentrate upon and what the most important things that you'd like, are.
You're programming the subconscious. This is all different practices by which we program our subconscious, and then we can draw in the energies that we want and let go of the energies we don't. I've done all kinds of things. That's really it's a process.
So when did you go from? So at what point did you decide? All right, it's time for me to start using this for good, and I'm going to start, helping people with relationships. And
that's what I was going to ask.
Did you were you somebody who struggled with your own relationships for a while? Personal, and what can you tell us about that? And again, take it to.
Yeah. So what I discovered, I was teaching yoga for a long time. I was offering Reiki. I was teaching Reiki. I Learned EFT tapping, which I'm not sure if you all know about that one. That's a beautiful modality as well.
Explain it briefly for people who may have not.
That is a combination of Chinese medicine and American psychology using acupressure points. We tap on the body. We recall emotions from maybe even memories from our past or just emotions within the body. And it's a form of energy work where you can complete the chemical reaction of the emotion that's moving through your system in real time so that you don't
with physical
by tapping.
Gotcha. Yeah. I know. I remember Jesse when Jesse was staying here in the mornings. He was doing that yo chi. It was like a combination
Qigong.
of qigong.
Oh, nice.
I believe so powerfully in qigong and the power of it. And it's funny, you know, I've spoken about this a little bit before, but you know, for those of you who might be interested, you know, qigong and tai chi similarly, they're sort of systems of helping you to regulate the energy flow in your body and to make sure through sort of, again, like, you know, like a shrine, by doing some active things to focus it and get it flowing correctly. You know, there are these major meridian points in your body where different bits of energy are coming together, and they do store a lot of trauma, and they store, you know, your pain and your past. And by waking them up and getting your breathing, which every time you're breathing, there are people who are what do you call it, breathologists? What are they? They're people who just breathe. They literally just breathe and they don't eat. You know, lots of people want to try to, you know, call bullshit on this, but I've come to understand it through, you know, working with plant medicine, that it's absolutely the case. All we really need is the prana from the, it's not the oxygen that is what is helping us. It is the prana. And the prana is literally just like the life force energy that flows through all things. And working with your prana and getting it flowing properly. That's why breathing is such an important, integral part of meditation and yoga and all these things. It's about bringing in that flow of prana. It was interesting. I remember I was smoking marijuana one time while I was on mushrooms, because I like, sometimes you get like a upset stomach, and I was just feeling a little unsteady, and I had the marijuana to try to steady myself because I felt like I was just a little overwhelmed. And that moment when I inhaled and I was looking into the device that I was smoking from, and I was seeing some of the smoke, and they said, you're not inhaling the smoke and getting high from the smoke. You're inhaling the prana. You're inhaling the soul of the plant. It doesn't matter about that. It matters about the life essence that you're pulling in. And everybody's focused on the 3D thing that they can see, the smoke, but it's actually not that. Your interaction is actually with the life essence, the prana that is inherent in all things. And it really like dawned on me, and I could literally, at that moment, I could see the prana, and I could see it sort of, I could see it different from the smoke. There was the smoke, and then there was the energy, and I saw that it was actually energy that I was pulling from the plant, the life essence of the plant, and really changed my whole perspective on what I was doing when I was breathing, what I was doing when I was interacting with plants, you know, like that. And it really, once you have that perspective, you never go back to that simple 3D thing of like, oh, I got to breathe. It's not about that. It's about taking in the breath, you know, the full breath of the energy that's available. And it's more sacred, and it's a much different thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Electromagnetic energy. That's sort of what all of that stuff regulates. It regulates our magnet. So I also study and have studied for a long time Myers-Briggs personality types. I don't know if you all know about that. The 4 letters.
They talk about that a lot in a lot of different books of the love languages and whatnot. A lot of those all kind of come down to the same.
I love personality matrices and the Enneagram. If you've ever heard of the Enneagram, that's another good one.
What's the Enneagram?
The Enneagram is a map of different ego styles. Okay. So there are really only like 9 different styles of ego, which would be like the masks that we wear, right? We all have all 9, but we also have our 1 or 2 that are really our favorite. And we call that the fixation. And that is the way in which our ego manufactures. It's our way that we use our ego to manufacture love, basically getting love. getting belonging, love, connection, whatever it is that we want. It's cool because it's a map and you can hear it in people's talking styles, and it's really supportive in shadow work and in coaching and things like that. So I've along the way collected, I'm autodidact, I love learning. So collecting all of these different modalities. And one of the things I discovered was that I'm really good at reading people. So I'd have someone come in for a tarot card reading or a tapping session, and they're like, how do you know? How did you know this about me? And I just figured it out, I guess. I don't think I'm
intuitively tapping into their energy. That for me too, reading angel cards, it's way more about tapping into the energy that's present. And then once that's happened, there's a lot of things that you'll kind of know inherently just because you're feeling the flow of their energy, and then you know where they're going or where they've come from.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it's helpful to have all of these different frameworks because then it's easier for me to explain to people what I'm seeing, right? Yeah. So that's sort of what's happening. And one of the things I discovered, I started doing coaching. I owned a yoga studio for a while, and then I was also doing coaching as well. And I realized that a lot of the women that were coming to me, one of the things that would always come up was something about their relationship, their boyfriend, their ex, their coworker, their friend. And I realized that I was good at it. I was good at helping people navigate what was going on in their relationships and helping them read what was underneath the surface and the subtext. Like, okay, well, this person's acting out and it seems like this is probably why. Or this is how you can request what you need from them. You say this, or this seems to be what's going on with you internally. Is that true? And like, oh, okay, yeah. And they would go and try the things that I would suggest, and that worked, and I got what I wanted. And so I created an online course that was specifically for people with anxious attachment styles, which of course is my style, anxious attachment.
Hold on.
What is anxious attachment exactly?
Speaking of which, I'm going to...
Anxious attachment, this is a whole other long conversation that we can have, but people who have anxious attachment
up there
tend to feel like there's never enough closeness between them and their partner. And so it's like your classic clingy person. Like, can we be closer? Kind of always yearning and hoping to have more intimacy, and potentially ending up being smothering or clingy, or you didn't text me back. Where were you? This feeling of abandonment, like all the time, like, oh, they must not like me anymore. They're not texting me. Where are they? That kind of vibe, feeling rejected all the time. And then there's a couple different ways people would navigate that. One would be to be very clingy, right? And most people know that that's not attractive and that people don't like that. So the other way to deal with it would be to pretend like everything's cool and that you don't have any needs and that you're all cool, and then eventually blow up later or end up breaking up with the person, or it sabotages relationships if you're not aware of your tendencies.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other one's avoidant. And so I created a program for people like that.
Yeah, that's your website, I believe.
Thank you.
Brought it up.
Yeah, you should really check out Cassandra's website. She's got a number of pay what you feel sort of thing. She really does it in a lovely way. She's not sitting there going, "Give me all your money." She's put herself out there and put information out there for people to find, and it's really I really respect her for how she goes about doing these things.
That's how I think a lot of. I find the true healers that way. Like they're not. They're just like, hey, what do you think it's worth? You know what I mean? How do I make you feel?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and a lot of the stuff you're talking about, I'm just listening to what you're saying and taking it all in and feeling grateful for my own communication skills, and my own language style. And it really, everything is boiling down to communication, and not just the language that you use, but your body language and your facial, I guess that's body language, but
that's all energy.
Awesome. This is great. I'm loving hearing this.
So I have a kind of specific question, just because I have a lot of, girlfriends, not a lot of girlfriends. I've got one girlfriend.
Female friends, friends who are women.
Girls, and who, have dealt with sort of similar, like, I just feel like I find a certain man and a certain sort of pattern with a lot of these friends of mine come up a lot, and they always kind of go to one explanation, and I'm always kind of pushing for this other explanation, and I wonder what you would have to say about it. And it's, these guys who sort of tell them how much they love them, tell them that, like, they got their back and I want to give you the world kind of thing, and then ultimately end up kind of ghosting them and disappearing on a dime in some fashion. And then they all have this like struggle of like, they didn't even love me. If they loved me, they wouldn't have done this, XYZ. And I have found with men that a lot of men are very cowardly. And it's very difficult. Like, if you do love somebody, and I know this because I am a little cowardly, not in the same fashion, but like, I was in a marriage that wasn't really making me happy for a long time. And part of it, I realized when I broke up with a girlfriend, a couple of years ago now, it was because I was terrified to hurt somebody who I really liked. And like, I liked them enough that I didn't. Yeah, I love them, and I loved them enough that I didn't want to hurt them, even though I knew that the relationship wasn't right for me, or that I wasn't sure about the relationship. Because I would say a lot of the stuff in my marriage came from more like fear that I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know if it was the right relationship for me. I hadn't explored enough. I hadn't done enough, and I wasn't mature enough to have that conversation where I could say these things and be truthful and honest about these things, and on some level, like, it would have been like, I that's sort of like, oh, well, if one day something happened and all of a sudden we weren't together anymore, like, whoo, that would be real relief to me. Like, that notion of being afraid of the situation that you're in and wanting a simpler answer than the complexities of handling emotions, I think sometimes leads a lot of men, especially, to run away without a word, without proper sort of closure or understanding. And I try to pass this on to these women sometimes, and there's always a lot of resistance to that idea. I say, I know this is going to sound whatever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't feel that way about you, and they don't actually really deeply love you on some level. They just may be really afraid and very kind of weak in a certain area of their fortitude that it gives them so much more anxiety to actually articulate to you what's going on inside them than it does to be honest. And it's easier to just run away and or ghost you or whatever the situation is, and there you go. What do you have to say about that? Because it comes up all the time, and I would love to be able to articulate to my friends what's going on, because I don't think that all men are inherently evil or whatever, but I do see that consistently these patterns do emerge where there's some cowardly behavior coming up, and it really will hurt the person who's left in the dust.
I would say that you're right about the cowardliness, and that's probably an epidemic just in our society in general. People are
I was going to say it's not just
afraid.
Men,
but sure.
People are afraid.
It just so happens. That's a pattern.
It is.
A lot of people don't have emotional intelligence. I agree with you there. So how do I even broach this subject? How do I navigate this? There's a few things that came up for me while you were talking. One of them is that I think a lot of people think that if you love someone, it means a whole bunch of other things that it doesn't necessarily mean. If he loved me, he would do X, Y, or Z. If he loved me, it would mean all of these other obligations, basically. And that's just not true. Love is a feeling, is a sentiment, is something that's built over time with people. It's something that you could feel in the moment. Right. Just because I love you doesn't mean I want to marry you, right? For example. And that's the other piece, is that I think for a lot of people in general, men and women, and especially now, because relationship, I feel like, just sort of between the sexes right now, there's a lot of tension. And part of that has to do with the fact that there's a lot of depolarizing going on where women are not taught how to be feminine in their polarity, and men are not taught how to be masculine in their polarity, if that's what they want, right? If that's what they want, if they're traditional people. I'm talking about straight people, right? Right. So, and also for a man, if he loves a woman and then decides he wants to commit to a relationship with her, that is a big responsibility. That is a big responsibility. A woman taking having the care of a woman and having the privilege of a woman being in your life is a responsibility. And so the decision is it's a weighty decision. And
I think that we amplify as a society. You know, I've talked to Julie a lot about this. You know, my girlfriend, our mutual friend. You know,
yeah.
like I love her, and she's so great. And I've kept telling her that I realized while I was in my relationship that so much of the reasons why I made the decisions that I made was because of the weight of the world, the weight of the expectation that I felt from all the people around me, and that I knew that if I was going to be in a relationship that was going to last and going to be right, that it had to come from a place of real, I'm doing this for me and because I want this and because this is a self energizing situation where it's going to continue to move itself around. You know, what's the word when its energy produces itself or whatever? You know what I mean? Self-perpetuating. Yeah. But you know, like, and that the sort of illusionary ideas of like, you know, buying the farm to get the cow, you know, like all that kind of like weird stuff of like trading for a relationship, you know, like that, those are the things that actually scare us, and that they imbalance the weight of you and your happiness and feeling personally empowered by a relationship and feeling like, am I doing this for me or am I doing this for, you know, and I wanted to make sure for myself that I know that I'm doing it for the right reasons, because if I know that I'm in it for the right reasons, then I know that I'll stay there and that I'm not at risk of hurting somebody I love. Because every time, you know, like, I mean, I had to break up with my manager who I loved ages ago, and I was freaking on the phone with him crying because I loved him and I had to end our relationship. And, you know, that is the stakes. You know, there's somebody that you care about, and when you're in a relationship and you're feeling anxiety, you might have to hurt that person. You know, if you're somebody who's at all empathetic, that can be a really terrifying and stressful idea. Like, oh no. And I think that makes people run away from relationships sometimes.
Yes.
Like, oh no, like I'm not sure, so I got to run now because I'm scared.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of it. It's like, if I'm going to continue forward in this relationship that I love this person in, it sounds like your friends probably do want something committed and long term from this person, and that's one reason why they're disappointed by the fact that they disappear. And I would imagine the man in this situation can tell that that's the case, and so it's a lot easier to disappear, which is a cowardly choice. It's not an emotionally mature choice a lot of the time, unless there's some sort of abuse going on, but that's a different story. And instead of saying, hey, I really love you and care about you, and for whatever reason, I don't think that I don't want to do life with you. I don't want to do life with you for whatever reason.
Or I'm not sure what I want right now, and I'm feeling a lot of pressure. Like I feel like that is the bigger one. Like when people don't know exactly where they're at or what they want, and I hear that the men will say some of those things to the woman at the same time, and they don't understand what is trying to be said. You know, he was trying to tell you that he was really confused, and like, he loves you, he means those things, but he also means, I don't know about me, and I'm crazy, and I'm trying to find myself. And like, all these things are words of somebody going, I don't know if I'm good enough for you. I don't know if I'm the right person for anybody. I don't know if I'm good enough for my family. I don't know if I'm good enough for my friends. And you think I am good enough. And that scares me because I don't know if I can live up to you thinking I'm good enough. You know, like, that really seems to be a ball that a lot of people are messing with. I don't know if I'm good enough to live up to what you seem to think I am. And that's like, you know, because it comes with responsibility.
I want to hear what you have to say about this.
I mean, I agree. I guess really, I feel like what you're getting at is that the answer is never really as simple as he didn't care about me, or he's a jerk, or it's just always much more complicated. And it's hard for us, especially when we're hurt, to hold so much complexity of, okay, this person loved me, but they still left. So maybe they're a coward, but maybe that, you know, I mean, it's just like, there's so many sides to an emotional scenario that's highly charged, where not only is this person's past traumas or whatever it is are coming into the situation, and then your girlfriend, your friend, is also hurt and trying to make sense of it. It's a complicated thing, and the answer to me is not. The answer to me is not like men suck or men are terrible or they're using me necessarily or they only
Right.
said that to get into bed with me or whatever some of those more black and white ways of
And
reading
those
the
things,
situation are.
yeah, but those things exist and they happen.
Sure.
And I
Yeah.
think that's like you said, almost like a less evolved ego happening there, you know, on
Yeah.
both sides of the relationship, you know.
Well, we all want, it's easier to understand things if they're black and white.
Right.
And
Right.
it's easier to decide if somebody's a good person, then we can still love them. If they're bad, then we're gonna ignore them. So if this person is still good, yet for whatever reason they don't want to be in relationship with us anymore, that's a blow to our ego.
Right.
And so it's easier to cope with the situation by just saying screw them, they're a jerk.
Right. Right.
No, I feel like that's more of what's happening.
Sure. Well, I'm waiting for you to say something, and I guess I'm just going to say it, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this as a variable in the equation.
Sure.
Because for me, I feel like right now I'm in the most successful relationship that I've been in, you know, in my life.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I feel like the key to that success is self-love.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I feel like, you know, where I'm at now and the way I communicate and work in my relationship just makes me realize all of my past relationships, all of the reflections. And I was saying, that's why I said it earlier, that I was just seeing of myself and my own insecurities. And, you know, even to address kind of what Jesse was saying, like, you know, if someone's getting out of a relationship and they're saying, I don't know if I'm even good enough for you. Well, obviously they don't have that self-love because it doesn't matter for me. Like, and this is what's so great. And Sunshine, I know she's probably watching, but this is what I said. I said, I'm in such a good place with my own self-love and my relationship, which I adore. And I'm so grateful to be in. But if my relationship was to end tomorrow, I would be okay. Because that's not,
and honestly, you know, that's the balance that it should be.
Yes.
So, you know, shout out to Julie for connecting us with the lovely Cassandra Vitale.
Yes.
My
Shout
girlfriend,
out,
Julie Bright again, is the greatest, and I adore her.
She's
and I love her so much. I love her so much that I have been more honest with her about relationships and what I learned coming up. Like, I saw where my anxiety in my relationship was coming from. And as I saw a wonderful person in front of me who I would like to have that sort of forever type relationship with, I don't want to establish any of the anxieties within it that I established in my previous relationships, that I saw how they were created. And, you know, and I want to have that inner, I'm okay and I'm going to be okay any way you slice it, because I know that that's the only way I'm any good to a spouse, is if I'm actually feeling really good with me. And I know that I'm in every moment choosing that relationship. You know, that's when you're building a house together, and, you know, as opposed to kind of being dragged at various moments in directions that you might be not sure about, you know. And I just want to make sure that I'm making the choices, and my consciousness, my soul knows that I'm making the choices, because then at no point in time am I ever going to resent her or be upset with her because I felt like I was peer pressured into this or I was strong-armed into it. I want to know, no, I did this. I chose this, and I chose this for all the right reasons, and I was honest and I was upfront about every little thing, so that I know that it is the right thing. And it was my inability to do those things in the past that ultimately created all these, like, sort of bubbles in my belly that eventually had to pop, you know, as they came up, you know, like, oh, there's one that I should have said something a long time ago and I didn't, you know. And these things are what really disturb a good relationship. And can, you know, like, I really think it's possible to be in the great relationship, the relationship that you should be in, and sabotage it because you don't know and you have too many anxieties, and they might not even necessarily be created so much by the person intentionally, just by the circumstances and just by how we are taught to live and how we're taught to create a relationship and what our responsibilities are to a spouse, which, you know, boys are, you know, we talk a lot about you know, the men having, you know, certain powers, you know, in the world, you know, with the patriarchy and the matriarchy. But what we don't talk about a lot is a lot of the responsibilities that are put on men's shoulders. And, you know, and this doesn't excuse when somebody behaves, you know, cowardly and can't, you know, face something, but we are asked to kind of shoulder a lot of, like, just in general, by and large, a lot of responsibility of, like, you know, you must make sure everybody else survives, and it doesn't matter if it hurts you and breaks your back. You know, like, that's sort of expected and not even appreciated as much as it should be when somebody does it. And
Yeah.
it can be really, I think, a frightening thing for somebody, and especially most men. I don't think that they are as good at articulating themselves maybe as we may be at this stage of our
No, they're not.
life, you know, while they're in a relationship, and they're just like, holy shit, I got some complex things that I'm feeling in my soul, and I got to get the fuck out of here before I have to say any of them, you know, because it scares us.
Yeah. People's fear of abandonment causes them to self-betray, and then that creates resentment, and then it sort of snowballs from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
we are
tough
coming to the
stuff.
end of our show. Michael, do we have
it's
some?
10
Do we
o'clock
have
already.
any important questions that we might want to get out? And do we have any questions in the comments that are worth addressing? I see a lot of people kind of chiming in
Let's see if
support.
anybody has any questions, relationship questions for Cassandra. You know, I mean, we've got a relationship expert here, so.
Well, it's funny, you know,
Yeah, I'd love to
Angela,
help
just, you know,
out.
in support of what we're saying, you know, Angela said, my husband said he's the man, so he has to take care of everything. I tell him it's not just him in it. And you know what? You can be told something. You know, Julie tells me all the time so many sweet things about me. Like she thinks I'm the most wonderful guy, and I think she's the most wonderful girl.
Right.
But I tell her all the time, I'm like, you know, you say that, I'm like, but I don't feel it. Like, I feel that you feel it and you believe it, but it's really hard for that.
But that's her trying to push you up, and
but it's hard for it to
believe
connect
in
to me.
yourself.
So, you know, like Angela,
Right.
you can say, oh, you don't got to take care of everything. It's not just, you know, you in it.
Mhm.
But when you have that feeling like you're supposed to do something and you're not doing it, or like, you know, that it's this responsibility kind of overrides even the words coming at you, or the circumstances that you're actually in. They stop you from feeling the reality sometimes.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that we have expectations of each other, and we do have things that we have to deliver in order to maintain relationships. And it's just a matter of reciprocity, like what Angela was saying, like we're sharing the load in different ways. And then we're also encouraging each other and believing in each other that, yeah, I believe that you are good enough to do the things that we want to do together, right? Or to have this relationship with me.
I'm constantly in my relationship saying this is a team effort. You know, even with my girlfriend has a 14-year-old, and even with him, I'm like, you know, you're part of this team. You know, we're in a relationship, all three of us. You know, so we do have a question from,
and I think this is a really good question to like close us out, because it's probably a longish answer. But
so Janet asks,
how do you know you're ready to get into another relationship after a bad one?
Well, one of the things I would say is, what does a bad one mean? And that, well, I guess we'll find out what that is. But the best thing to do is,
well, I guess the question would be a little bit more like, after you know that you've been hurt, and you feel vulnerable, and you feel like, I don't know if I should get into another relationship. Like, I've been hurt before, and I don't know if I'm ready. You know, I've said to Julie's such a saint. You know, I've said to her, like, you know, I've had my heart broken in a lot of ways, you know, being in a relationship and not being able to live up to the things that I promised I would. You know, like it broke my heart. It broke me in a lot of ways. Like I felt like I was supposed to be able to do that, and I didn't do it. And literally, like, getting away from the relationship, I had to kind of put my head down and just, like, I mean, granted, I didn't just disappear, but after it was like, okay, we're broken up, I kind of did, because I couldn't talk to her parents. If I talked to her parents, they would convince me to go back to her. Anybody could have convinced me to go back to that relationship, because I felt a responsibility that I was skirting. And I knew that if I heard from anybody telling me, hey, you should rethink this, I was going to go with what they were thinking. Just like I went with the doctor when he was like, no, you're fine, whatever. I was going to do what they said. And I literally hid from the world, because I knew that I needed to get away from myself so I could learn, but I didn't have the strength to, to defend myself properly.
Sure. Well, good for you for sticking to your guns on that. And so one of the answers I would say is, when you're ready, when if you when you meet the person that you feel like you want to have a relationship with,
You'll
then
feel
go
it.
for it.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other would be when the charge, when the heartbreak, when the bitterness, when that part of you that still feels so much in grief, when you can sort of look back and say, oh, I was there. I was in grief. I was in that place. And I don't feel like that so much anymore. So you're not taking that bitterness or that grief with you to the next person and either using them to avoid feeling them or doing the self-reflection that is important to do when that happens.
Right.
If it's behind you, so where you can talk about and say, yeah, I was sad. I had a bad time. These are the things I learned. Then you can move into your next relationship.
Right. If you're still in it, right. Obviously, you're not ready to move forward. Right.
This is interesting, a concept, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. I had this sort of realization about what we call the rebound relationship. And I don't really like that term because I feel like it's very diminishing to the people who you are in a relationship with, that they're a rebound. But I do see sort of the energetic and spiritual reasons why we've come to call it that. And, I think it tends to come from, most people, when a relationship ends, it doesn't end on closure. It doesn't end with feelings resolved. And most relationships don't end great. It just kind of ends, and then you move away. Let's say you're not dating anybody for a little while at all, and then eventually you go to date somebody again. Well, this might become your rebound relationship because the energy that was still cycling around in your, field from that last relationship that never got resolved, it just kind of got put to bed for a second.
Sure.
It may come up. And to say to somebody like Janet, don't be afraid if you go into a relationship and some of those same issues that you had last time pop up again, because if you weren't able to resolve these things and you weren't able to get closure, even something like, the simplest one is, you go out with somebody and they've been cheated on before. You might find that they have a little bit of anxiety about what you're doing and where you are and whether or not you might cheat on them.
Yeah.
It's not because you've done anything to, yes, she does.
Totally.
It's not because you've done anything to bring this out. It's because the energy of being hurt like that, and that this might come out of nowhere and surprise me, is rattling around, and it could just pop back up to be resolved.
But that would happen in any relationship that person had, regardless of the lineup of whoever it is that they meet. If they haven't taken the time to really look inward and find out where those patterns are coming from and why they have those fears or those anxieties or why they continue to, exactly as Sunshine just said, they didn't learn their lesson. So I used to, when I was younger, have a rule, don't date your rebound. And I would say, after a personal experience, that's a dumb rule. Like, sometimes you meet somebody right after you're with somebody that you didn't want to be with anymore,
it's a
and
whole
then it
different
ends up being
relationship.
an amazing thing, and that's the right person for you. And then, or sometimes even you meet them while you're with somebody, which a lot of people have lots of thoughts about that, like, kind of going from one person to another without there being any break in between. And really, what I've learned is that it would be great if we had a heuristic that would tell us, don't do this because this will always go badly.
Right.
It's just not possible. Like, life is just life and love and human beings. And it's just so much more complicated than that. So the big thing would be, don't jump into a relationship with somebody without, as Sunshine said, doing some reflection and discovering what my part was and why that partnership didn't work out, what it was about that person that triggered me and that didn't work for me. Because then, regardless of who you date next, you're going to have that insight and things will probably go better.
Well, you're going to learn. The rebound relationships are learning relationships, I feel.
Sure.
And really, I think if you can kind of, not to say keep that person at arm's length, but not go into the relationship because you feel like you should,
right?
But because you want to.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Yes.
you can date somebody for a minute, you can feel somebody out, and it's the moment where you start to do the things that you didn't exactly feel comfortable with, but you felt like you had to or you should do. That I think like take it to that place where you're like, oh shit, I'm already like stepping on my own toes, and this is like
Yeah.
getting kind
Yeah.
of crazy
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what you were saying, Michael, earlier about communication, it really is mostly about, hey, this is something that happened to me last time. I don't want to recreate it. I'm having feelings. Help me work through this. That vulnerability and that sharing. And are you capable of helping me have a better experience this time? That obviously that would require some sort
Communication. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
that would require internal, I know myself well enough to know
Right.
how that I need to say this to my partner in the first place, and
Right.
then having that safe space where that person can receive that.
Right. Absolutely. And that's again communication. You got to establish that, oh, I'm communicating well. Is my partner receiving well? You know what I mean? And then you gauge. So I'm not the relationship expert you are, but listening to everything that you were saying, I just had this thought and kind of realized it's been a bit of my own relationship philosophy, you know, towards my most recent relationship, and that is, don't even necessarily look for a relationship. I think that's where people are going wrong. I think where, society conditions you that you're supposed to do this. And
Yeah.
really the relationship you need, and I said this earlier, is the relationship with yourself.
Yes.
And again, like, I feel like once I reached that point, I wasn't looking for relationship. Isn't something you find. A relationship is something you build. You
Yes.
know what I mean? It's like you have to kind of go through these steps. It's not like, "Ooh, I found my relationship. There it is." And
Yeah.
I always thought
Totally.
that was kind of silly. So that would
Yeah.
be my thing, is like, don't actively be like, "Ooh, I'm looking for a relationship," even though I understand that. You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Yeah.
there's always an element of intentionality. Like if you want to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a partner, then you have to have that intention. Otherwise, you're sort of just floating in the ethers.
Right. Right.
And when you're looking for someone, sometimes that can create that desperation or that clinginess. And that, A, that's not attractive. And B, that will bring to you somebody who might be incompatible for you, but you end up bonding over trauma.
Exactly.
And then that becomes toxic, and you self-betray and do all those things that
Right. Cool.
Jesse was
Thank you
talking
so
about.
much, Cassandra. I so appreciate you being here. I want to address like this because we don't always talk about relationships on this show, and it's been nice to be able to sort of get into that.
Really nice having you. Thank you.
It
Cool,
kind of
yeah,
brings
my
me back
pleasure.
around to something my friend recently, one of my friends who was going through the same thing, and very much like this was like the dozenth friend who had that situation where somebody ghosted her who really loved her, all these things, and she kept getting all these messages from the universe of like sort of pulling her back into the relationship. And she said, why would the universe be showing me these things if I wasn't meant to like explore this role? And I said to her, I can't stand being away from my children. I said, and I have had to be away from them to make money for my family. And it's like literally my worst nightmare. Why would the universe keep waving it in my face and reminding me of my pain here? It's because I haven't healed that pain yet.
Yeah.
It's not because somehow I'm supposed to, like, there's nothing for me to do right now except heal from the fact that I'm in the situation that I'm in and I need to move forward. And, every relationship, problem, whatever, it's just a cycle, just like any other. And we're meant to learn something from it
Totally.
so that we can move forward. So if you find yourself in that same pattern, do think, well, what haven't I learned here? Or what isn't getting through my head? What do I keep missing?
More self-awareness.
Yeah.
And self-love.
Yeah, and self-love.
Being gentle with ourselves about when we see a pattern over and over again. It doesn't help to try to push it away.
Right.
Is there anything that we can help promote for you before we let you go and end our show today?
Well, yeah, I do private coaching. I love to bring people in and give them support. I also do a lot of marketing and branding, if that's something that's interesting to any of our friends here. But I do that through the lens of relationships and talking to people and actually being a human being, talking to other humans. But yeah, right now I have some space on my calendar for one-on-one coaching. I do a lot of coaching, especially with women. I have a podcast as well called Sad Intellectual Hotties, which I
Oh yeah,
think
I've
you
seen
could
some of that. When do you where do you do that, and how often
you can
do
find
you
that
do
on Spotify, and we put out around 2 episodes a month. So we don't do it every week
Sad
like you guys.
Intellectual Hotties?
Sad Intellectual Hotties. It's all about relationships, love, sex. We talk a lot about alternative subjects like kink
Oh,
and
cool.
polyamory, and we really try to support monogamous vanilla people and expanding their horizons with bringing in some of the concepts and some of the things from those cultures in the ways that people who are maybe not as radical or alternative can use the techniques to make their relationships better.
I guess there's itches within every one of those communities that people are looking to scratch and can't figure out how to do so. There's a lot to learn from how everybody just does their relationships differently.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I'm just curious. You yourself are in a polyamorous relationship?
Not currently. No.
Not currently.
I have been. I
Mhm.
actually prefer monogamy, but there are certain things that I really like about polyamory, and a lot of it has to do with working with jealousy, working with getting your needs met by multiple people. So I don't necessarily like having sex with multiple people, but I do like having very intimate relationships with multiple people where maybe my partner is this certain kind of way and he can meet certain needs of mine, but I have another friend who is into these things. And
Right.
so we're close emotionally, and I can get these needs met through that.
Right.
But I think that all comes around to what we were saying earlier, about having that inner self-love,
course.
like, cause that's like, I think the itch that gets scratched there is I don't want any jealousy.
Right.
I want to feel like I'm a free person.
Right.
I want to feel like I'm trusted. Those are the kind of things that, that make it easy when you're like, oh, well, I'll just have a polyamorous relationship. And then I don't have to find this thing,
Right.
like
No,
in, a monogamous
bad.
relationship, but,
It's a recipe for
finding that
disaster.
inner love.
Right.
It's a recipe for disaster. Yeah, and I agree with Angela. 50 Shades of Grey is not how kink is done. So essentially, you were asking about what to promote, and really, if you are a person who's curious about alternative ways of having a relationship, more radical ideas, and then also just increasing the awareness and the closeness and the intimacy that you have with people, or the success of your relationships, that's really what I help people with.
It's interesting. I've been speaking to one of our listeners who has a relationship with the synthetic, and
Wow.
it's super
We haven't
interesting
reached
to
that
me.
one yet on our
It's
podcast.
so interesting to me, and again,
You have a new guest
because of who I am. I'm so like accepting of it, and I'm just like, wow, that's really interesting. And I'm kind of, I do find myself wondering what the psychology behind it is sometimes, but I'm just like more so happy for that person. Like, cool, you found something you dig, you know what I mean, and that you can put your energy and passion into, and that's all I really care about.
I dated a Corvette for a little while.
You did.
There you go.
She was nice.
You won't get any
Very
back talk.
submissive.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Human beings are fascinating. The complexity is vast, and the weirdness is never ending. So might as well.
I think that there's like a lot of
it.
there's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Not stigma, but just misunderstanding of like
demonization of
polyamory is,
yes.
And I think
absolutely,
if you have people who love themselves, why wouldn't they be able to have successful polyamorous relationships? There are probably people who think, ooh, polyamory is like swinging, which is
that's
totally
one
different thing.
form of it.
Yeah,
and it's funny, a lot
right?
of times when people, kind of connect to anybody doing that, it's some, let's say, unhappy couple,
right,
who's trying, there are ways in which this isn't going to end well.
Yeah, that happens. I've had
but
that
at the same
experience.
time, you do come across plenty of people who are motivated in very different ways, and I think the motivations behind the different ways that people love and different relationships people get into are often very different than you imagine that they will be. And you just can't prejudge. You have to let everybody do them and find their own way.
They both work. Both of the paradigms work. There are just as many problems with monogamy as there are with polyamory, and it's just different types of problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you,
We're all
Cassandra.
about solutions here.
Yeah,
We so
absolutely.
appreciate having you on your show. Thank you for giving us,
Yeah.
sharing us your personal story of consciousness with us, and we so appreciate you being on the show. We hope that our viewers will find you on your Instagram and listen to your podcast and check out everything you do. And thank you to all of our viewers at home.
Thank you.
We've enjoyed being
Cassandra.
here for another fabulous
so much for
adventure
having
in the
me.
live stream of consciousness. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
Bye.